All right, just waiting on a few more people and we'll get started shortly. All right, so I don't see too many more people coming in through the waiting room, so I believe we can get started now. So thanks again for coming to the January webinar. We're going to be hearing from past grant recipients and really looking forward to listening to what they have to say about their grant experience. So introductions, please introduce yourself in the chat box and share which community in Oregon you're representing. And which grant opportunity are you most excited to learn more about? So I'll give you a few minutes to do so. So we have a couple more people just submitted to the Zoom meeting. So welcome here. Please introduce yourself and share a little bit about which community you're representing and which grant opportunity you're most excited to learn more about. Thanks for all these wonderful responses. All right, I think we're going to move on. Thanks again for answering these quick questions and introducing yourself. All right, the webinar purpose. So our purpose today is to become familiar with grant cycle information and upcoming dates, and also to learn about the construction, planning assistance, and education grant programs from past grant recipients. So I'm going to quickly go through the webinar agenda. First, Hannah's going to walk us through the solicitation overview. Then we're going to hear from our speakers. We'll have a quick Q&A. And finally, I will read out the announcements and new resources. And finally, following that up with our feedback survey. So we have a quick survey at the end of this meeting to see what you enjoyed and just learn how we can make these webinars the best we possibly can. All right, well, now I'm going to pass it off to Hannah.
Thanks so much, Shelby. Hi, everybody. I'm Hannah Day-Capel. I'm with Alta Planning and Design, and I'm the project manager for the consultant team working with ODOT to deliver the Oregon-wide Safe Routes to School program. So we have a hand in many of these different grant programs. And like Shelby said, I wanted to be really clear. We're not going to get into the applications or the selection criteria or all of these the details of how to apply for the grants. Today we're going to talk about what you get with the grants and kind of the overview from past participants. So hopefully this is helpful, especially for folks who are new, and it's great to see so many familiar faces on the call who may be engaged with a different aspect of the program and are interested in expanding what you're working on. So next slide. So to start off with the construction grants, I'm just going to give a quick overview of what you can expect for this solicitation cycle. So on the competitive construction grant, that's the grant that funds sidewalk improvements, crossings, infrastructure. There's $26 million that are available for that grant for the cycle. It's a two-part application like it's been in the past, where there's a relatively simple part one application that's designed to help score and understand kind of where all the project, what the level of interest in is, and where different projects lie. And then ODOT will provide your initial score so that you can then, communities can then decide whether it's worth your time to go into the part two, which does take more effort. Part one, and actually all of these grants and the technical assistance will open on February 12th. And there will be more information as we get closer to the 12th, and they will be due on the 25th. In terms of the technical assistance, so this is what we've previously talked about being the planning assistance or the PIP, the project identification program. So we've expanded this program, and I'll come back to what the different pieces of it are in a moment. There are some changes to the overall construction grant that are still in progress that won't be decided until the end of the month. And so that's part of the reason the details about the actual applications are not yet published. So next slide. Oh, sorry. If you can go back to the last slide. Been without power for 48 hours, so things are a little bit slow on my end here. I hope everybody has been staying safe and warm during the storm we've had. I wanted to quickly give an overview of the last cycle, just to give you something to compare against, or what we can expect from last time at least. In 2022, there were 83 applicants for the part one of the application, asking for more than $80 million, and then 56 applications for part two, totaling 60 million. And I believe that the amount was, again, close to the $26 million that they were able to give out. So just to give a sense, it's quite competitive. For the construction technical assistance, that's historically been less competitive. We have been able to offer the project identification program or the planning assistance to all of the applicant communities. The last 3 rounds, we've been able to do that. So we've made some adjustments in terms of how many schools that we're looking at and some things like that. But that one, historically, we have been able to offer the planning assistance to all the communities who have applied for it. And then we also did a additional engineering pilot and quick build pilot that I'll talk about a little bit. So now, next slide, thank you. So for the planning assistance, which, as I mentioned, used to be called the Project Identification Program, or the PIP, what you receive is not actual funding, but you receive the ODOT Safe Routes to School team, so led by Alta Planning and Design, to come out and do a comprehensive planning effort for your community. We do a safety analysis and plan review, and we come out and do a site visit and observe arrival and dismissal at your schools, and we develop a Safe Routes to School plan. There's a link here that we can put in the chat that has all of the plans that we've created from the last 3 years. Each year we update our templates and improve our processes, but really the intent of this program is to provide a community with all of the things that they need in order to apply for a competitive construction grant. And I'm happy to answer any questions if folks want to put them in the chat or ask afterwards. You don't have to stand on ceremony here. But I'll keep moving. So one of the new technical assistance offerings for this year is called engineering assistance. And what that offers is to really take a project that was identified through a planning process deeper into the design so that it can be more hit the readiness criteria on the competitive construction grant. So that's to say that, it's projects like sidewalk infill, neighborhood greenway design, lighting analysis, A lot of getting projects to 10% design, where that's not something that we usually provide as part of the PIP or the planning assistance, but it is an opportunity to go deeper dive into a specific project to get it ready for the competitive construction grant. And one thing that's specific to this program is that it's only eligible to communities who have done a planning process, either through the PIP, through the ODOT Safe Routes to School planning process, or through another similar process that involved community outreach to the school community and identifying a project specifically. So we can talk more about what that looks like if that's helpful, but this is intended to really support communities in getting further on more complicated projects towards the competitive construction grant, who may have the lack the resources to actually do the designs in-house. And there's examples of what we produced in the pilot here on this slide. So then the next of the technical assistance, if you go to the next slide, please, is what we're calling surface treatment. So we'd called it quick build in the first phase, but ODOT has other programs called quick build, and quick build often may include other larger infrastructure improvements. And this program really is a surface treatment program. We're refreshing crosswalks. We can provide painted curb ramps, curb extensions rather. We can do flexi, the flexi hit posts or bollard kind of things. It's relatively just surface treatment kinds of improvements. The eligible applicants, again, need to have identified their project through a planning effort that could have been the PIP, or it could have been another similar planning effort that involved engagement to the community. And communities would be signing up to support review the designs, and we're actually go into the implementation of these surface treatment kinds of improvements. So next slide. You can see, we can put this again, the map in the chat, but in the past, there's a nice interactive map that ODOT's created where you can see all of the previous grantees for all of the different award years and for the different funding sources. And so this is showing the 39 projects that were received the competitive construction grant in the last cycle for $32 million. Next slide. So then on the education side, new for last year, ODOT offered 3 different tiers of education grants, and that's going to be continuing into this year, into this solicitation cycle. So the 3 tiers are the tier 1, or the Education Grant Plus, for communities that are new to Safe Routes to Schools or haven't received funding since 2017. And so that communities apply to the Education Plus and receive funding to hire a coordinator. They also receive the support of the Safe Routes to School ODOT technical assistance provider team, and I'll talk about that in a moment. There's also the sort of classic education grant is called Tier 2, and that's for communities that have maybe established a program or have gotten funding recently and to continue their program and deepen the sustainability of their program. And then finally, the innovation grant is for communities that have established programs who've have a sustainable plan for their programs, and it's much smaller. It's $50,000 over the 2-year time period, and it's really intended for innovation. So next slide. The current grantees, many of you I see on the call today, good to see you all. There were 5 communities for education, 5 for Education Plus, and 3 for the innovation grants. And they're distributed across the state. We actually, ODOT was able to fund all of the eligible applicants on the education grant for this last cycle. And that's partly because of IIJA, of the Federal Transportation Bill, having additional funding. So they were able to put in a little bit more to the last round. And also it was kind of coming out of COVID. And so in the past, we have in 2019, there were actually 28 applicants to this program, and only 12 of them could be funded. So we anticipate this year being much more competitive, but the last round was not as competitive as it has been in the past, just to give you a sense of what the most recent rounds have looked like. Next slide. So to get a little bit more into the tier one, and we'll talk more about this, I know, and I know some of you are on this call, but of the 5 of the tier one education grants that we're working with this year, for each of these communities, we're supporting onboarding of the new Safe Routes to School coordinator. We support creating a task force and bringing together folks who have you might contribute to a Safe Routes to School program, to creating a Safe Routes to School implementation strategy. You can see the draft of the Portland Public Schools one that we're working on. And then you're receiving the technical assistance provider support in implementing walk and roll to school days, walking school buses, and all of the activities that we do around Safe Routes to School. So it's really intended to be kind of a support for communities that are getting started. And then finally, the last slide I have is just more information. So yep, this one, thanks. So for applications for all of these services will be available starting February 12th. There's going to be a webinar that will have all of the details of the actual application and scoring criteria and eligibility. Those will be coming soon. You're also more than welcome, and we invite you to join our regional hub meetings, particularly the ones in February, when we'll have Heidi Manlove, the education project manager, and Zao Posadas, the construction project manager from ODOT, joining us to talk about the specifics and answer people's questions. And then the 2 program managers will be having office hours every Thursday starting in mid-February. Finally, we'll have more information on the website under the Find Funding. I think there's not much there right now, but we'll be adding to that as we're able to. So with that, that's my spiel of kind of the overview of all of the different options that are available. And I'm happy to answer any questions, or we can move into the more exciting part of the webinar and hear what people actually did.
All right, thank you so much, Hannah. I appreciate you going over all the solicitation information. I feel like that was very helpful to everyone. So now we're going to bring on our speakers to talk a little bit about their experiences with applying and receiving these grants. First up is construction. Reed, would you go ahead and give us your presentation? Short
Sure.
presentation.
I did not prepare any slides. I apologize for that. There was a list of questions that were sent to me, and I will just kind of go through those and respond. First of all, my name is Reed Dunbar. I am a senior transportation planner with the City of Eugene. Our area has a very robust Safe Routes to School program. All of our school districts have a Safe Routes to School coordinator. We also work with our MPO and have a regional coordinator. And so we have a lot of programming that's ongoing. And the city, each of the cities actually in the region works with our Safe Routes to School coordinator to look at different infrastructure projects that would help more kids walk and bike to school safely. So I work with our Safe Routes to School coordinators to identify their priority projects and to start scoping those projects in preparation for these ODOT grants, which have been great. The barriers that we're mostly seeing for students, I think, are because we have a pretty complete sidewalk network in most of our neighborhoods. It's about crossing arterial streets and making sure that our elimination of barriers is something that we focus on. So we do a lot of enhanced pedestrian crossings with those rectangular rapid flashing beacons. We've also replaced those yellow flashing beacons with like a pedestrian signal that goes red, yellow, green, where the yellow flashing light wasn't enough. And we've used these ODOT Safe Routes to School programming funds to do both. We've also done sidewalk infill. And so if there's a gap between where the school is and where the nearest crossing is, for example, we've been doing sidewalk infill with these funds. We also do school speed zone signs. Right now, we're focusing on doing one flashing. And so that says that the 20-mile-per-hour school speed zone limit is in effect when flashing. And so it's easier for folks to understand when the 20-mile-per-hour speed limit applies than having just some kind of signage that says between like 7 and 5. It's also more enforceable. And so that's also been an issue, is speeding, especially in the last couple of years, has seemed to increase since the pandemic. And so we're dealing with a lot of concerns about speeding. We're looking at corridor improvements, and we're looking at finishing those critical connections between neighborhoods and schools. We've had a lot of different safety projects funded, including some of the signals, as I mentioned, sidewalk infill. We're also looking at what we would call more of a rural street cross section, where there's just straight pavement. There's no curb, gutter, or sidewalk. And sometimes those streets connect directly to a school. And what we're finding is that parents would allow their kid to walk or bike to school if there was some kind of separation for kids walking. And so we're experimenting with different types of separation that would separate kids walking from people driving, and looking at different scenarios for that. And we were fortunate enough to get some funding to work on that. Our first project like that is currently in the scoping and design process. I think we're at about 60% design, so that one will be happening pretty soon. My experience with the grant process has been great. This Safe Routes to School turns around the grant. We get the agreement generally in like a month or two, versus many other types of grants that we apply for, and we're waiting for 6 months to a year to get an agreement before we can get started. Safe Routes to School is a lot faster than that. They expedite these grant agreements, I think, quicker than any other program that I've used. And so they're fantastic for that. And I think they're also aimed critically where we need those programs most. Those critical connections between neighborhoods and schools, where we have our most vulnerable users walking or biking to school. And the impact, I think, has been very positive. In fact, I had a meeting last week with our Safe Routes to School coordinators already, and they're like, okay, what are we applying for? And we went through our priority list, and we talked about other projects that were happening in the area. Ideally, if we've got another project happening nearby and we can add a project like this onto that, then we can share some of the costs for mobilization, or for traffic control plans, or traffic management, those sorts of things. And so strategically, we're trying to identify which projects make the most sense at this point. And so that's, yeah, we've done a heck of a lot of projects. I would say that we've got more need than we've got funding, but that this program helps a lot to help winnow that list down a little bit. Am I also on the list for planning assistance, or just for construction?
You're only on the list for construction, but if you
Okay.
want to talk a little bit about planning assistance, I believe we have the time to do so.
Okay.
Up to you.
Yeah, just for 2 minutes. We got our first planning assistance grant last year, and it was specifically because we had a corridor that was adjacent to a high school and a middle school and a swimming pool. And we didn't want to go forward with a Band-Aid approach where we're fixing one of the crossings, but there are several in the corridor that need some attention. And so, I talked to the Safe Routes to School staff, and I said, well, what can we do? Would a planning assistance grant help us do more of a corridor design so that we can look at blocks and blocks of this major roadway that connects all of these great uses together, and think about what that street should look like? What should the ideal bikeway look like? What should the pedestrian crossings look like, and where should they be? And we were able to put that together. So we finished up our first planning assistance plan, and it was a corridor design, and I think it's going to be really helpful when we apply for construction. And so they helped us prioritize which of those crossings was most needed, and to put an entire design together for the entire corridor, so we're not just going in and fixing some of the symptoms and not looking at the overall issue, which was the corridor design, which was just too big and too fast. So there's a lot of great programs, I think, through Safe Routes to School, and I would encourage you to look at those and see how they fit your community, and then talk with the Safe Routes to School staff to see if you can work something out, because you probably can. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reed. Very much appreciate the information you shared with us all today. We're going to be moving on to the planning assistance, which also Reed touched on, which is fantastic. Nick, would you go ahead and share your experience with the planning assistance, also known as PIP, grant process?
Sure. I'm Nick Delonzo from Milwaukee. I'm a member of the Llewellyn Neighborhood District Association. So I'm just a resident that was member of a team that initiated the PIP. The genesis of it was 2.5 years ago. And that was where we put together a survey and got 154 responses in a neighborhood of a few thousand. Our school size is 267. Our issue was speeding and lack of sidewalks and inability to cross the street safely for students who, and by the school district actually forbade students crossing the main thoroughfare because it was not safe. So parents weren't letting their kids walk or bike. We initiated, excuse me, we initiated a survey. It was an online survey and got the responses that said, yes, we need speeding, speed tables, sidewalks, crosswalks, and that was the impetus to really start looking for funding. We initially went to were turned on to funding by a city councilor, and that allowed us to go ahead and start looking into the construction grant. We realized it was a big lift, so we applied for the PIP. We got all the players involved, the school principal, the road authority, which in this case was the city, and got on board in getting that planning grant awarded a year ago. So we started in October of 2022. We've completed that and come up with an action plan as of the fall of 23. And now we are ready to launch for the actual construction grant. Now, what we had thought we were going to get isn't what we actually got. I mean, we're looking at getting substantial sidewalks down the main thoroughfare, which has none, that allows students to cross the street. What we initially got with the action plan were amenities, ADA curb ramps, stop bars. The main work is going to be on the street in front of the school, which has, needs some major improvements for crosswalks and some speed tables. The capstone actually is going to be an RRFB right at an intersection that'll allow students to cross during drive time, and usually in the morning and in the afternoon. Now, with the issue of the possible increase in a funding cap, that will allow us to put a sidewalk down Stanley, which is the main connector between two arterials. If that happens, that's going to really ramp it up, because the city managers will now be able to then maybe leverage that with some possible assistance through the county and through the capital improvement plan. This whole process is strictly grassroots, and I got the grass stains on my knees to prove it. We did substantial work in recruiting businesses and the PTO, and we're in front of city council for a year, constantly in touch. In the project management team, there were 3 city engineers, myself, the school principal, and the community, the Clackamas County Community Safe Routes coordinator. Shout out to Nicole Perry. And we went through a lot of looking at the data and coming up with something that would make an impact. The issues that come up in the PIP is making sure that whatever the community wants aligns with what the city wants. And the city didn't have any plans, but they didn't want us to, bump into existing capital improvement plans. So that took a whole lot of research and a whole lot of wrangling and a whole lot of discussion to get that aligned. Now, to be able to do this, we had to get, obviously, the city to get on board. And just 2 weeks ago, we got a letter of support from the city to initiate planning and to initiate the application, that is. And right now I'm doing a mock-up of the application to submit to the city engineers. Will then wrangle it and then get it ready for submission in February. So that's my story. Anybody have any questions?
Thank you so much, Nick. Really appreciate you explaining your story with the planning assistants, also known as PIP. We are going to take some more questions towards the end of hearing from our speakers. So if we have some questions, we will direct them to you, Nick. Thank you. Eric, can you please go ahead and share with us your experience with the planning assistants?
Sure. I'm Eric Esacker, transportation planner at Josephine County. I'm not a senior, I'm not an assistant or associate, I'm it. We don't have a very big department here. When the Safe Routes grants come down the pipeline, I'm the guy that jumps on them. Last year before, we had an opportunity to work with some people out there in Cave Junction. There was some cooperation snafus. That grant didn't pan out as we had hoped. And I don't know how this happened, but we were selected for a quick build project. And you can see the photos here on the screen in front of you for this crosswalk that is across a very busy street between a junior high and a high school. The actual distance separating the two schools is about a half a mile, but we have this difficult section of road to cross here. And as you can see, these are the before pictures. That crosswalk had a lot to be desired. I got a call one day from a guy named Charlie Simpson, who works for Alta. He and his partner, Max, helped us come up with a plan to refresh the paint on this crosswalk. They changed the design from the horizontal striping you see here to something more continental. There was a few months of going back and forth with some design alternatives. One was selected. Some of the alternatives just would not have worked out there. I don't know if you are all familiar with the stand-up placards that they put in the middle of streets to show that there's a sidewalk here the kids use. They wanted to put one of those signs in here, and we informed them that in Cave Junction, this would not be a sign, it would be a target. So that was taken out of the design criteria. Do you have the after pictures there that I sent you? Or is this it?
Yeah, I do. Sorry. Thanks.
That's okay.
Here's a couple more before.
Yep, looking north and south.
Yep, before, and then got the after.
And there it is. There was the quick build project. They put in that more continental design. The sidewalk is much more easy to see. I'm sure that this change kind of jumped out at the locals out there. There's not a lot of people that live in Cave Junction. It is one of two incorporated cities here in Josephine County. It would be on your way to the California coast as you pass through Grants Pass. Cave Junction's another 35 miles down the road. So I'm sure that this change was pretty big for the community out there. I know that for us, looking at these before and after pictures, it doesn't look like a great big change, but it sure was for them. And I really appreciated being on the receiving end of that quick build project. It just kind of landed on in my lap one day, just out of cyberspace. I was very surprised, but as you can imagine, money was pretty much dangled in front of me. We had to jump on it. And so this was the result of that quick build project.
Thank you so much, Eric. We are going to now move on to our education grant recipients and their experience with receiving the grants. So first, we're going to start off with Mary Jo. And Mary Jo, I know you have some wonderful slides that you made, so I'm going to switch over my presentation to those slides for you.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I see a lot of familiar faces. So those of you who were at the SRAC meeting will recognize some of the slides in my presentation. And I'm also basically going to be presenting sort of in addition to Multnomah County, we work in partnership with City of Gresham and a lot with Bike Works by Pair. So Megan Moser's here. She may wind up adding to my presentation. Next slide. So for those of you who may not know, East Multnomah County Schools are located in 5 different cities and 3 different school districts. So there's a lot of different road jurisdictions, a lot of coordination for the schools and the school districts and the different Safe Routes to School programs as well. Additionally, this part of the metropolitan area was originally was farms for a long time. And so this particular area, a lot of it was unincorporated for many years. I think in the 80s, City of Gresham and City of Portland kind of met up the boundaries and said, okay, this is Gresham and this is Portland. But for those reasons, there's a lot of lacking infrastructure. It was sort of out there for a long, long time. So we have a lot of infrastructure issues out there. Next slide. Additionally, challenges out there using the Metro Walkshed tool. You can see that cluster of dark green dots indicates high need schools. So we have a lot of high need schools out in that area, which often means that the schools and the school districts don't have a lot of time for Safe Routes to School on their own, doing it on their own. Next slide. So this is a little view of the different grants that we've received for education. The blue are the grants that the county has received, and the orange are the grants that BikeWorks has received. So between different ODOT and different Metro grants, we have kind of cobbled together a program for a while. Each bar does not represent necessarily a full-time FTE. So currently, my time is a 0.2 FTE, and that is through a Metro grant right now. So we've done lots of grants over the years, and we're really appreciative because we don't think that the programs would actually be happening if we weren't being grant funded at this time. Next slide. So I'm going to speak a little bit to the implementation strategy. So we did receive support from Alta Planning and Design for creating an implementation strategy. This was done through one of the Metro grants that we received. And I think we were kind of at the forefront of having this kind of technical support from Alta specifically. And it's been really incredible to get this support and guidance and support from Alta. They have so much experience and have really helped to guide us through this program. So if any of you are out there and are curious about getting some support like that through some of the grants, I recommend going for it. You can't go wrong with that. Okay, next slide. Of course, we've done many things with these grants. The main activities of Safe Routes to School: pedestrian safety lessons, walk and roll to school events, outreach in the community, and site circulation support. Next slide. We also have been the recipient of an infrastructure grant. The roads out in East Multnomah County are a combination. Most of them are actually City of Gresham roads. So the City of Gresham has applied for some grants to improvements near the schools in Gresham. The county actually owns 223rd near Fairview Elementary School. We recently, last cycle, we received an infrastructure grant to add some sidewalk, a crosswalk, some ADA improvements, a stormwater basin. That should just be one, not basins. And right now we're going into the design phase. And what we found is that the cap of $2 million constricted the bigger project that we had looked at. So we are looking at applying for additional funding to get a more complete project, because for example, the crosswalk doesn't really connect. It won't connect on the east side to any kind of sidewalk or anything. And also I went out with the engineers. We were scoping it this week, and we're currently updating the county's construction and design manual, and that could actually influence what we do in the future if the county winds up setting new standards, like for a separate bicycle and pedestrian pathway. So that could influence kind of what we apply for, what we can do in the future as well. So I think that's all that I have. Yes. So make it short and sweet.
Thank you so much, Mary Jo. I'm going to switch back over to our other presentation. Appreciate your speech. Sorry, 1 minute, please. All right, I'm experiencing a couple little technical difficulties, but I will get the presentation up in a minute. Thanks for holding in. All right, we're almost there. Thanks again for your patience. Okay, can you all see the presentation?
No.
No? Oh, man. Okay. Let me figure this out real quick. Okay, just give me 1 second. Please think of some Q&A questions for the speakers while we wait. I just need to pull up the presentation. I think might have closed out on my screen.
I was going to suggest if Julie or Leah, you don't need slides, then you could probably go ahead and share your experiences while Shelby is getting the slide deck back together.
Yeah, I didn't have slides. I don't know if Leah did.
Yeah, I don't either.
Perfect. Okay, that would be fantastic. Leah, you're up on my presentation as going next. So if you want to go ahead and share some of your experiences, that'd be wonderful.
Sorry, Shelby, we could see that you were sharing, but we didn't see the screen you're looking at. So maybe on my end, sometimes when I do that, I'm clicking on the wrong, like it'll give you so many options. Just make sure you click on the right. You probably have it open. Just make sure you click on the right one that you're sharing.
Okay, no, that's a good point. I will check and look into that real quick. Thanks.
Okay,
Leah, if you
well,
want to
hi.
go ahead.
Yep, sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Leah Beato Lewis, and I'm the Safe Routes to School coordinator for the Beaverton School District. So our district serves 54 schools, and our team is housed within the district's transportation department. So I'm just going through the questions that they sent me. So how did we determine the need for this grant? So we had already passed an initiative in our district to mandate ped bike education for all 34 of our elementary schools. So going into this current round of funding, we knew that we needed to increase our staffing in order to meet the needs of our larger district. And then at the same time, we were in the process of switching our encouragement model to from like voluntary to having at least 2 district-wide events for all 54 schools. So again, we knew that that would require additional staffing. So that was the main goal of our last round of grant funding. And then finally, we've always had our sights set on getting some stable funding for our program from the district. And we felt that by increasing staffing and just allowing us a few more years of networking within our district, we could really show the school district the benefits of our program. And then which education grants? So this current round of funding, we were in that tier 2 because we had received funding in the prior cycle. So we were in the tier 2 of the education grant. And then, you know, as far as the grant process experience, I just really have appreciated the additional support from other Safe Routes practitioners, from Heidi especially. Sometimes I feel like the grant process can feel a little daunting. It requires, you know, so much organization and tracking. But I really felt like there was always someone there to help when I had questions or give me ideas about how to streamline things. And then I would just say that I was also very concerned, especially when I was first hired. You know, I think 6 months into it is when COVID hit for the first time. And I was so worried about not meeting grant goals. And I just found that, again, with, you know, thorough explanations showing the progress that we did make or what we tried, that ODOT was very understanding. You know, some goals just take longer than what you anticipate. And then as far as the impact, you know, this funding has made a huge impact on our community. You know, during our time with 2 cycles of ODOT funding, we've grown our program significantly. Our event participation rates have at least doubled in size. Our staffing, we were able to increase from, we started with 1 full-time coordinator and 1 part-time assistant, and we now have a full-time coordinator with 3 part-time assistants. So now we're equitably able to offer encouragement events to all 54 schools, our ped bike program to all 34 elementary schools, and we were able to fully fund the coordinator position through the district and transportation department. So now, you know, we don't have to rely so heavily on our grant funding. We still just fund our assistant coordinators now through that money and our materials. So yeah, that's kind of our experience. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leah. Now we're going to hear from Julie.
Hi, my name is Julie Van Horn. I am the Safe Routes to School coordinator for the Medford School District, so down in Southern Oregon. I took on this position about 3 years ago, and we also were awarded the first round of grants for education, like Leah was talking about during COVID. So when I picked up, one of the struggles was just getting the position known or the program known in the district and our community. And that's been a slow but steady progress. And I'm happy to report that I think it's been really successful. And that's where I'm definitely going to talk about the most as far as the impacts and the benefits of this. If anyone's on here close to me in Southern Oregon area, I see that there's a Josephine County person that was speaking earlier. I would definitely advertise to any of your schools about this opportunity to start an SRTS, Safe Routes to School coordinator in their area. And one of the ways they can fund it as a seed grant is to apply for this. When you apply, you come up with your goals that you're looking for. So for us, my goals was, because we're starting from scratch, we did not have a position that did any of the Safe Routes to School stuff labeled Safe Routes to School. It was still being done, but it was done by other departments. And they communicated to the city, or the city would communicate to them. And they just had so many other things that they were doing that having a dedicated Safe Routes to School position is very beneficial, because you can streamline the communication. You can be a great liaison to the road authorities, who are the ones that are going to apply for the construction grants. So they need to be able to communicate to someone within the district really quickly and efficiently, and get some data to them, or answers, or even communication to the families, because they as the city have the ability to communicate to the city, but not necessarily pinpoint each school district, because we have a lot of school districts. We have not school districts. We have our main Medford School District that reaches 14 elementary schools, 3 middle schools, but then we have quite a few private schools, charter, well, we handle the charter schools, but online schools and stuff, that I think that the benefit of having many different safe routes to school coordinators in one area would increase the ability for the cities to communicate to all of them. Let's see, as far as the impact for our own schools, just Medford School District, I would say that, again, there is a streamlined communication. If a school has an issue and they need help and they need support, they can reach out to me and I can go to them more quickly and efficiently than if there was maybe someone that's just handling safety in general or overseeing facilities or something. I work with the facilities, but if they have trouble with drop off or pickup or busing, or for example, we had a road closure recently because they were doing construction in a nearby neighborhood and we were trying to scramble to reroute the parents. And the principal had a direct phone call to me to ask for support on how they should go about that. So those little things can really add up and they feel very supported. The schools feel supported, the staff, the parents do. They know that there's someone specifically looking at the routes, not necessarily just within the 1 mile radius as well. Sometimes I address the routes to the bus stops or a bus stop and the safety of an area where students are waiting near busy roads. So granted, the construction grants for safe routes, I don't think, and I might be I don't know the answer to that, but I don't think that you can do construction near a bus stop, but I can still support them in trying to troubleshoot. Maybe this area isn't the best area to have a bus stop, or connect them. A lot of the things I do is I connect students with other students and let them decide if they're going to maybe form their own walking group or their own not caravan, but carpooling, and they can work that out.
Julie, I can answer the
Oh,
question
yes.
quickly if that's helpful. And
Yeah.
actually, this is something that's changed in this for this cycle is that in previous years, the competitive construction grant was only eligible for projects within a mile of schools, and this year it is now 2 miles. So you can't go beyond the 2 miles, but it could. So it can't specifically serve a bus stop that is further out than that. But if it is within 2 miles, then it would be eligible.
And then in addition to that, thank you, Hannah. Those are just the grants that you're applying for. But if I went to the county or the city and said, we have an issue at this area, we have a high population meeting at this bus stop, then they're interested in helping improve the safety as well. So it just depends on who has the money, but it's ultimately the road authority that would approve it or maybe even take care of it. Or there could be something that they're already in the works. That's another thing too I've come across when I reach out to the city or the county. They might already have something in the works and it actually fits into their projects, and so it's great. And that's where the communication piece comes in handy, because if I come to them with issues, they can kind of put it in their little box and look at it later, or they can figure it out right away. As far as the community, I already touched on that, but the events, oh yes, same thing with Leah. When I started this out, one of my goals was let's start increasing walking and biking. And I was doing 1 or 3 schools at a time. And then I decided let's just do the whole district and see what happens. And it's been really successful. I advertise for the whole district, but I narrowed down my support since I am just one person and I get a lot of volunteers. I'll maybe support 1 or 2 schools at a time. And I see a big turnout even in those schools that I'm not able to physically support. So there is a benefit to just even creating the events and advertising, because ODOT already does such a great job with coming up with the dates and the flyers and all kinds of free info pamphlets that you can get. They have so much support and supplies that you just tap into that and you can create a really quick event, whether it aligns with their dates or other dates. I really like that. And that is kind of how I've been hearing that other areas near me don't have safe routes to school coordinator. And I've shared with them that this position was created with this grant but we're going to continue it because there is value in it. And as I listed earlier, it was just the streamlined communication liaison, a one-point contact where even the district, if they have something, they can come to me or assign it to me. I've heard that a lot too. We're like, oh, it's so nice to have someone to be able to do a site visit. Go do a head count on this crosswalk. We heard there was issues, or go physically help create a route maybe in this one area. So from the city's point, they like it, from the district's point, and then from the community. Anyway, I definitely encourage any of our surrounding areas or anyone in Oregon to have a school district apply for it. But if even a school district can't, anyone else, I think someone's going to cover that too. It's not just for the school district, but what I would say is if every school district had a Safe Routes to School coordinator, whether it's funded by a grant or not, it is going to help out their district in general and their community as a whole. The last thing I would say is with the construction grants, only the road authorities can apply for it, but they don't necessarily have direct information or data, and they need that in order to apply for the grant. And that's where our relationship really comes together, because I can supply the letters of support and the data and the information, and then they do all the things that I'm not even sure how to do, nor do I have the ability to do it or the authority to do it, but it's great. I do have a ton of questions for everyone that spoke before me, so I can't wait to ask, because as I'm wrapping up my construction grant this year, or not construction grant, I'm sorry, education grant this year, I would be eligible to do the third and final round. But I think we're gonna see how we do with where we are right now, and kind of feel out how the district is going to move forward with funding my position, because that's pretty much essentially what our grant paid for, was just my wages and then all of the other things that I kind of added to it. I did take a lot of our construction, or I keep saying construction, but our grant, and bought a bunch of new material for our crossing guards and our safety patrol, because even the students that are getting dropped off, they still have to access the front of the road or the front of the school, and it benefits everyone. So the walkers within the 1 mile or the 1.5 mile for middle school, and then the students that are getting dropped off, which that's my big push. If you're going to drop off, you can drop your older students off a few blocks away, and you won't be stuck in line maybe if you turn a few blocks earlier. Before I end though, Hannah, I want to throw this out there on the education grants or the construction grants or anywhere. I can't remember if it's a grade specific, if it's only K-8, or if it goes all the way to high school, even if it's construction. I'm just curious.
That is actually another change for this year. Yeah, that in the past it's only been elementary through middle, and now it's elementary through high school.
That is music to my ears for many reasons, because I know that with this position, kind of getting the ball, like people are becoming more aware of it. I get a lot of complaints saying, oh, you know what, you need to do this at the high school, or you need to provide this at the high school. And I can do that even aside from the grant. Obviously, the school district has the ability to do those things. As I'm specifically working under the grant right now, so I just wanted to know. That's awesome. All right.
I should clarify that may be one of the final things that is still in decision by the end of the month, but that's what we're anticipating. So don't definitely attend the other webinar that will have all of the details.
Okay, I look forward to that one. I think I covered everything. So if anyone has questions, I definitely say that as a Safe Routes to School coordinator, you have your hands in a lot of things, and you have the ability to get answers and questions to people that need them in order to finish their part of anything to do with Safe Routes to School.
Thank you, Julie. Thanks for all that information and asking some great questions that I think everybody else could benefit from as well. We're gonna move on. Let's see. Okay, so we were gonna do a Q&A, but it is noon. So I think we're gonna skip over to announcements and resources real quick. And as far as the Q&A goes, I see some people ask some questions in the chat, and we've got some answers going in there, as well as I will be sending out more information from this presentation today via email to everybody who's attended. Therefore, there'll be a other opportunities to get your questions answered. Okay, statewide announcements. So Winter Walk and Roll to School Day is on February 7th. That is coming up very soon. And excuse me, incentives ordering closes on the 31st. And then, so just please keep that in mind when you're going to order incentives. And our trauma-informed practices training is going to be in lieu of the February webinar, and that's on February 20th from 9 to 12. So we'd love to see you there. And lastly, just a reminder, the February hub meetings are going to have time for grant Q&A and discussion, and we'll have Heidi and Zhao are going to attend those to answer all your questions. So that's another opportunity for Q&A. Just a shout out to some new materials. Winter Walk and Roll, we have 2 bingo cards, a snowy weather bingo card and a rainy weather bingo card. Those are also translated into Spanish and are up on our website currently, so I will be sure to include a link to those in my follow-up email. And lastly, thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon, and you should receive a link to a feedback survey when you close out of Zoom. So if you could go ahead and answer those few questions, it would be greatly appreciated. Thanks again. Thanks to our speakers as well.